from APEC. I hope you enjoyed the APEC keynote. I catch parts of it, but I wanted to make sure I'm all ready for my talk, which follows a very amazing keynote. So the topic I wanted to cover is a bit of an introduction. So there's a few bits to it. It's about introduction to Microsoft Lists, but with Power Automate. So it's kind of a mix of, hey, there's this new thing called Microsoft Lists, but we can customize it and extend it using Power Automate. Power Automate is the new name for what used to be Microsoft Flow. My name is John Liu. I'm a MVP in SharePoint and also in the Power Platform in Power Automate. I did consulting for a long time, but right now I'm building a startup with some tools around SharePoint and Power Platform. I'm based in Sydney, so there's me. I'm the second guy. Always really enjoy Valo's work in building intranets and how quickly that has helped customers in the past. And loved the engagement with the community, and so really happy and glad to be part of this Valo Fest event. So I just wanted to give shout out to Knut, and these are some of the partners there in Australia. So very quickly, this is probably something you can mention in chat, but if you don't know what Microsoft Lists is, or just put up your finger or something. Let me mute people when they talk. Okay. So and then I'll kind of catch up later and see. So what I want to cover in this roughly 45-50 minutes is what is what is Microsoft Lists? And the short answer, and there's a short answer and there's a long answer, but the short answer really is that it is an evolution of the SharePoint list. Okay, so the SharePoint list has been in the product for a very long time. That is evolving, and now it's not completely rebranded, but it's kind of, there's a new name called Microsoft Lists, which is built on top of the SharePoint list. And so there's kind of three things I hope you get out of this hour. If you have not seen what Microsoft Lists is, what is new? What is new that wasn't in SharePoint Lists before? So that's maybe one part. The second part is, if you haven't seen what modern SharePoint Lists is, this could be a quick catch-up. So you may be familiar with classic SharePoint Lists. You may think, oh no, it's that old clunky thing that's really difficult to use. And you might be pleasantly surprised at how much SharePoint Lists is moving and how much the SharePoint team is investing in the modern SharePoint Lists. So that may be a quick catch-up. Like a lot of times I find people look at the video for Microsoft Lists and they say, oh wow, that's a new feature, that's amazing. When will we get that? And the answer is actually, we already have it 6 months ago. So there's a bit of a catch-up in, bringing everyone up to speed with what actually we can already do with modern SharePoint Lists. So that might be something that's surprising to you. And thirdly, if you haven't seen how we can customize modern SharePoint Lists with Flow, I have a fairly crazy demo towards the end. Hopefully it's something that everyone could follow and jump in. Let me just mute people. Mute people. Mute.
Let me, John do that. I will be doing that. So you can just go forward.
Okay. So what's great about modern SharePoint Lists, and this is a big bullet point list. What's new? So there has been a lot of investments around how to quickly provision SharePoint lists, and there's something that's pointed out in the Microsoft Lists video. I have some slides later. We can show you what that looked like. But there are two parts to it. Firstly is Microsoft is working on a lot of the templating, and this is built on top of the SharePoint modern site design and site scripts. So that allows a simple JSON definition of your site definition and maybe list creation template. And that's something that Microsoft is working on. And also they're going to bring out a bunch of custom templates. For the old SharePoint users, you may remember things like the Fabulous 40. This is really old. If you know what Fabulous 40 is, you should raise your hand in the chat room. Don't be ashamed. I love those. I love that as an idea. It's super friendly to a business user to quickly see value in using SharePoint lists. And that's something that I'm seeing that I'm imagining there will be a big comeback. But also we can create custom definitions. So it's not just the templates from Microsoft. We can create our own custom definitions. We can define if we want the list to be created as part of the site, or even we can create them manually to an existing site. So that's all fairly easier and easier to do. And I will have a quick demo to show you how we can do that. What Microsoft has GA'd very recently is we can easily create a SharePoint list from Excel file again. So this was an old feature that kind of went away, and now it's kind of modernized and fixed up and supports a whole bunch more different columns. And that's GA already for everyone, so 100% everyone could use that feature now. Modern SharePoint is a lot easier to customize, and I'll show that in a second. And also we can automate with Power Automate. That's to write traditional what would be a traditional workflow, or we can enhance and add a Power App, which is something that we used to do with something like, say, maybe InfoPath. So these are all amazing, flexibility. There is a simple customizations we can quickly do, all the way to crazy stuff using Power Automate and complete takeover and reskin using Power Apps. So a few screenshots. This is something that we can already do. We can share lists and grant access to list items. So this is something that's this UI may be familiar to you if you're used to the share menu in the document libraries. The same UI is being kind of applied to modern lists. So modern lists, you can easily say, oh, for these items, I want someone to be able to read. You could do that to the entire list, as well as you could do it to individual items. So you could always go to list settings and then, set it up on the back using the classic interface. But that whole experience is being modernized for this. And then in the Microsoft list, so in the future enhancements, there's more that they will be adding to this area. This is something that's conditional formatting, where for any SharePoint list right now, you can easily create select a row and then create conditional formatting using just the browser to set that up. So I will show that in a second, but this is the type of experience that you have. Now, in the Microsoft list, so in the future, there is more styles, more out-of-the-box patterns, more templates that we can use. So it's very exciting. You can quickly build these things. And then in Microsoft list, let me run through. I kind of want to get to a lot more screenshots, so I might talk a bit quicker. In Microsoft list, there is there will be a first-class mobile experience. Currently, we have the SharePoint mobile app, and that could, show you SharePoint sites. But the list experience in that app is not amazing. So that will become the focus this year as Microsoft List is brought out. So there will be a first-class mobile experience. There is also a custom form experience, including header and footer. And there's a picture I have for that in a sec. I'll show you that. We can create lists in My Sites. So right now we can only create lists in SharePoint team sites and communication sites. And we in SharePoint and Office 365, you always have your OneDrive for Business. And OneDrive for Business is where you currently can keep files to yourself. But you could share those files to individuals that so behind the scene, your OneDrive for Business actually what traditionally is your SharePoint My Site. So that functionality is being brought back where I can create a list in my site, so in my OneDrive for Business, and that's just private to me, but then I could share that to other people. So that's that. There is some work with a new field type. It's called an inline image field, which allows us to put the image right into a list, not as an attachment, and then you have to link it up with a HTML reference. It's just the image right into a list. And there's some additional work done to comments. Comments will become a kind of a next level hierarchy available in every list and in every document in your document library. So for any item in the SharePoint list or any documents, you can create comments and have a conversation tree to every item. And there's also update the list view. There's talk of a future Gantt chart view, and let's show a few pictures. So the full
John,
yes, am I going too fast?
Question about the
sure.
The app. Is it already in GA?
No, it's not GA. It's not in GA. So there are two parts. The list, Microsoft List, will be coming to GA around, they say, summer. And I guess we're nearly the end of June, so I hope we'll see that soon. So there are two parts. They mentioned that the list itself will GA in summer, but then the mobile app will come later this year. So both are coming this year. Right now, you can use most of SharePoint. You can use these mostly in SharePoint lists. So if you create a SharePoint list, that eventually that UI will improve and you will gain all the capabilities. So all the capabilities for Microsoft Lists will apply to SharePoint lists. So right now, if you want to create lists, you can just create SharePoint lists first. That entire experience will improve. Mobile will come later and they will work with all your current lists as well. I guess what you can't do right now is you can't create lists currently in your OneDrive for Business. So that hasn't started rolling out yet. So right now, to create a list, you have to create it in a SharePoint site. All right?
And when you talk about SharePoint site, just one question more, your recommendation would be that you create that in the Teams SharePoint site so that it can be integrated within the current Teams.
Yeah, that will be a lot better because you don't have to worry about permissions. People that have permission to the current team automatically can see and use this list. Okay. So yes, so that is definitely a good recommendation. Thank you. You can always share the list outside of the members of the current team, right? But then you have to manage two sets of people, right? So as you add people to the team, they may not have permission to the list, then they can't read the list. So yeah, so there's that. So some screenshots that I've taken. This is the templates. And most screenshots you see 8, but in fact Microsoft showed off 10 templates. These templates will allow us to quickly say, oh, I want a quick loans list. And these are basically a custom list with predefined columns and formatting and even some alert rules as well. Some of the templates like event itinerary and maybe project planning has date columns. So they actually have a date calendar view as well. And I'll show you that in a second. The experience to create so this is when Microsoft List is GA, it will appear as a product from your app launcher. If you click that Microsoft List, you'll go to an experience similar to where you currently have SharePoint sites, but instead of seeing sites, you just see the lists. And this will show you the recent lists that you have, as well as any lists that are your favorites, so you can favorite the list. When you hit create a new list, you can pick from the templates. You can decide an icon or even a what do you call this? Emoji? Fave icon. And also you can create whether you want that to be created in my list, and that means it goes into your my site, or you can choose one of your existing sites. And that could be a SharePoint team site, a communication site, or maybe a Teams site. Some of the new stuff that are coming in Microsoft List, there is a new part to it called rules. And rules are kind of that in-between step before you go all the way to Power Automate, where you do add additional connections. Rules are simple ones where you can say, when an item is created, I want to send an email. Or when an item is changed to, a property is changed to a certain value. So maybe you're only concerned when the item is approved, then send an email at that point. Or you're only concerned if an item is deleted, send an email. So it's a combination of, or rather an extension of what we currently have in SharePoint List called alerts, except it's modernized, more flexible, create quite complex rules regarding, if I only want to know if the column is changed to a certain value, and then send that. Okay, and at the same time, as the owner of the list, you can see all the rules at once. So you can turn them on and off as you go.
Partly related to the rules, there's a question about are SharePoint lists available to be shared outside of the organization? So you would probably share just the list, not the full site.
Yeah, so there is actually one site. Let me come back to that. I might have one picture of it. Microsoft did not explicitly say this, but currently you can share a site with external user. And if an external user has access to a list, then yes, they could see that list. So currently that is something that we can configure using the SharePoint permissions. Now, it's tricky to say create enough permission that they can just see the list but don't see the rest of the site. It can be done, but it's quite tricky. So whether there's a better experience that you could just say share here. So imagine you say share here, and then you could type in an external user, and it shows the little menu that says invite that user to this tenant. You say okay, and then the user would just get that smooth B2B sign-in experience. I don't know about that. But I think what they're doing here will mirror what they are doing with documents. So anything that they're working on for sharing between documents, sites, and lists, this whole experience will be kind of like thought of together or invested on together. Yeah, so I have good hopes that it will work quite well. Okay, so this is one of the custom views. In that traditionally we see lists as this big grid, right? One of the new views that we have is what is called the tile view. The tile view. And the tile view has a built-in designer where you can quickly decide which columns do you want. You can actually also toggle off the column names. So imagine this session code, session type, you could get rid of it by just toggling this off. You can also, this is the image column that I mentioned. There will be a image field type where you could save the image right into the list. Now, SharePoint always works with images very carefully. It creates thumbnails in the back. So whether you're on a small device or a large device, it will automatically pick the correct size thumbnail pictures. So I imagine you could put in quite large pictures, but SharePoint will selectively show which size was best fit for that resolution. So that's what I imagine will happen. I don't know. I haven't kind of looked at the source behind it, so I don't know. But I imagine that will be what happens, because that's how traditionally SharePoint always is very careful around images. Again, also with the speakers, if you show the preview, it will show you the photo from your user profile or from your Microsoft Graph now. So make sure you have good photos for all your people. Otherwise, you just have, JL, and it's not as nice. Make sure you good photos. This is another one. Oh, I didn't show a menu. But you can actually group by these columns. So what I want to show is, see here, in SharePoint, you can always group by a column. right? In a what do you call it? In a grid view. But in a tile view, you can also group by columns. So if you say, okay, I want to see accessories, I want to see laptops, and you can see the tiles actually grouped separately, and then still renders really nice. So these are all, almost just out of the box. You go to edit list settings, edit the list view, and then the editor comes up, and you just tick the boxes that you want, and you get this experience. All pretty much out of the box. This is the calendar list view. So again, a different rendering of a custom list. Now, this is really just any custom list that has any date column could use the calendar view format. So you basically get this. With the setting, let's have a look. Yeah, so in here, yeah, so this particular custom list has a start time and an end time. So it shows you these sessions start and end on a certain time. I imagine, next year when Valo Fest is run again, or maybe not whole year, maybe in 6 months when we run Valo Fest again, these will all be live, and maybe there's a very lively SharePoint list that has all the sessions being prepared and tracked. Will be quite interesting to see. Then what else am I trying to show? Yeah, so there is. Sorry, I brought in a lot of pictures from various slides. I want to kind of really show where the SharePoint team, where the Microsoft SharePoint team is thinking, and what extensions they're adding to the current experience. So this is an additional interface. So right now, okay, imagine this back here. What we're seeing is the list view. That's the grid or the calendar or the tiles. And this one that pop up, this one is the form experience for this one item, right? Like currently in SharePoint list items, if you click an item, you get a full experience. You get a panel that slides in from the right. It's about this wide, and it shows you all the fields for this item. Okay, so the next stage of this is these columns will be editable. You can say, okay, I only want to show these columns, or I don't want to show these columns when this form is shown. You can reorder them so they don't have to follow the order that's defined in your SharePoint list. You could, reorder them the way you like them here. You can even put conditional formatting and say notes are not required if the session type is just a simple talk. Right, so you can actually put conditional formatting, and that will give us a very quick, out-of-the-box way to customize this list form. We don't even need to go into some crazy JavaScript to edit the form, or we don't need to go all the way into Power Apps. So if you want to just customize a simple SharePoint list form, the experience of being able to do that very quickly is coming and soon landing within this year. So I'm very excited to see that. And there's a bit more. So I have forgotten what I was going to show here. There's a few more styles coming. There's a style that allows you to say, okay, so priority here is a choice list in SharePoint. You can actually say, okay, if the value of it is low, I want to draw this icon, and I want this, what do you call this, jelly bean style. You can put the color inside the jelly bean, like red or green, and then you can choose an icon as well. So more styles are coming. This is really just to make it super user friendly to a power user. You don't need to know crazy CSS or JavaScript to make this work. This here again, that's the image field where the image is uploaded. An additional part to this is there are also adding in ability to customize the header. So imagine the list form that comes in from the right. You can customize any header and the footer to it. So it's almost like, oh, okay, I could change my fields and order them and hide them and maybe even add formatting and add all these nice little, what do you call it? Emoji, favorite icons. But then in addition to that, I can also customize the heading and the footer. And going further, you can actually create the form and make it wider than just the side panel. You can make it 2 columns wide. You can make it 3 columns wide. This is a different one. With top heading, 3-column layout, all with out-of-the-box SharePoint. Just edit the list form, and you'll be able to do that. So these are all work that are being worked on and will land with Microsoft List. And when they do land, they apply to all the current SharePoint lists as well as Microsoft List as a thing in the future. Okay.
There's actually an interesting point regarding list and calendar. So is calendar can we expect the calendar be just a view so that I could actually turn any list into a calendar view if it has, for example, date information, or will we still have a separate calendar list which must be used?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. The calendar is actually purely a view. So there is no special calendar list. So that is good in the sense that any list could be calendar, which is wonderful. But if you were expecting some sort of, I want to add this list as a calendar into Outlook, which is what we could do in the Classic, that's not what they're working on. So that part will not work. Okay, so the old calendar list that was in SharePoint Classic, that had very special behavior when you add that to an Outlook. Like it could come in as an external calendar. That's not being supported here. So think of it purely as any list could have calendar views. So basically, any list will ship with the grid view, which has the quick edit. So the grid has this inline edit mode as well. And then it will have a tile view, which looks really amazing with a nice picture, the tile view. And then thirdly, it has a calendar view, which is this one. So you see up here, it says calendar. So that's a calendar view. In fact, the event itinerary, I don't have a screenshot. Is this it? No. Yeah, so, no, that's again a calendar view. Sorry. But yeah, the event itinerary list actually has both a group by view, where, say you're the organizer, you're more concerned with, okay, these sessions should have been all prepared by now. Let's make sure the speakers know that they are ready for this event. Whether they've uploaded the file or whether they've confirmed they're actually speaking. So there is that list view for the owner that that's the one, and the column condition formatting. You can make the rows kind of red, kind of like this. Imagine if the sessions are not ready yet, because it's blocked for some reason, then there's a conditional formatting that highlights it. So as the list owner, you may be working in this view, but when you want to consume it as dates, you see it in this view. Yeah, and you can also pick which one's the default. So you could say, when all my visitors come to this site, they're gonna see the calendar view as the default. But yeah, okay. Now where are we up to? We're up to this guy. We went to see this. It's crazy. We see the 3-column. I don't know whether they'll go to 4-column. Anyway, it's all crazy. Then this is the other addition that they're working on, which is this comment. So for any list item as well as documents, the comments become this additional. SharePoint always has things like history, right? Like if you turn on version history, you can see for each item, you can view history, and then you'll see a list of history. So I see this being implemented very similar to that, in the sense that for any item, there is a stream of comments that are available. So you can do that on any list item. You can also do that on documents as well. Okay, so that's just something that's available everywhere. I guess currently we have this functionality in the site pages. So if you go to SharePoint and create a site page, there's a little comments thing where you can add additional comments. So it's kind of that system. And this is the what is this? This is a combination of a bunch of crazy stuff. So I wasn't sure whether they have 4-column layout, and obviously they do, because this is a 4-column layout. One of the items in this list is still got the old attachment thing, but also bringing in the comments. And even in the comments, you can add, you can add mention as well. It looks like within Teams, the comments has integration with the Teams channel. So that is something I'm very keen to see how that's integrated, but very exciting to see what they're doing in this area.
Regarding that, I would highly recommend checking the Mark Cashman's keynote when we upload that to YouTube. He was showing exactly that.
Excellent. Okay, and 2 more. So this comes a bit later. Oops. Oh, sorry, I forgot to hit the full slide. This comes a bit later, but because the entire list is built using modern SharePoint components and the latest web technology, the SharePoint lists will automatically work in a mobile app. They are responsive. There is this really fancy experience where you can pin this title, but when you swipe right, you can see the other columns. So the header and the fields will swipe, but this title of this item is pinned. So you keep that while you swipe. You can create new lists directly in the mobile. It might be a bit too small to customize it, but it's always good to see what that looks like on the mobile, because I could see a lot of lists that I use personally. I could easily see myself viewing them on my mobile just to quickly see what's the latest ones being updated, or whether there's anyone that I need to do some actions on. So there's that. And so this is some bullet points. I pulled this off Microsoft Slides. So coming this summer, there are quick edit improvements, particularly for large page. They are improving the field editors for any field type. There is copy and paste, so you can copy and paste multiple rows, and the support for that is improving. Sticky headers and also first columns. So the sticky header refers to these headers being sticky as you scroll. And then the first column, so you can say make this title field or this first column pin on the left while you swipe the rest on the right. New rendering styles for choice and people fields. They call it pure. I like jelly beans. Style, the image columns. And then also the iOS apps is coming. Better auto indexing. That's to deal with the large lists. A lot of times, people ask, SharePoint has this 5,000 item limit. What about that 5,000 item limit? There's 2 answers to it. The simple answer is that the same limits are still there. The 5,000 limit is to prevent you locking up the SharePoint server. But programmatically, when the list is being accessed, the data is returned in pages of up to 5,000. So web experiences like this, you can always scroll down and then it will just automatically show you more items. So in terms of the user experience, it's less of an issue than one might think. Now, if you are very concerned with large items, I generally recommend, this is me as a consultant head. As a consultant, I usually recommend that you can run a job, maybe in Microsoft Flow, that just archives all items. So items that are completed, you don't need to see it anymore, but you want to keep a copy. Copy it to a separate list or just archive it away, and then don't leave it in the same list. So that will keep your list a lot smaller, which is always good for performance as well. So that's my consultant hat. Now,
sorry, John. So your recommendation would be to archive a list and maybe you search actually to show the data from both archived and currently if someone wants to see the old data.
when I used to build a lot of whenever I build a lot of heavy customizations on top of SharePoint lists, generally there's that question, right? And you work with your business to say, is 5,000 items a potential issue? Most of the time it's not, but sometimes it is. And generally the best way to fix this, if you're thinking about, oh, okay, I might have a big performance problem, is to just say, well, do you need to keep items that are older than, say, 3 months? And most of the time business say, as long as I could find it somehow, I don't need it in the same list. Then the easiest way to fix that then is to create a flow and just copy all the lists across and then get rid of them. And I think some of these features, such as the inline images, it will actually make the copying easier because you don't have to copy a file separately and then fix up the URL again when everything is just embedded in one list. Now, earlier we have a question about permissions. I just wanted to share this. This is, again, a slide. But here, there are AAD one-time password for external users. That's something they're thinking about, so not yet. But coming in the summer, we have link sharing. You can do company shareable, so this is internal, share it with anyone. You can, anyone links. And also you can say expiry date or even password to access your list. So those are features that we have in document libraries that bring that to the list. And also comment on list items, very cool. And these are top of mind. So the external one-time passcode, that looks like something they're thinking about. Cool. And priority with comments on files, add mentions, notifications, and so on. Okay. How much time do I have? Wow. Quickly, I wanted to give some ideas for why. So we have all these customizations we can do with just out-of-the-box SharePoint lists, and a lot more of the experience will be even better when the Microsoft list lands. But there is still a second part to my talk, which is that Power Automate is still there to do even more automation or even more behind-the-scenes logic that we might need to add to our list. We don't want our data to necessarily live in a silo, so we want to connect it to automation. It may mean that you copy it to other lists. It may mean that you notify people. It may be that you add approvals to your lists, and these are only a flow behind the list. There's some examples. We can create PDF of our list on a schedule using flow. We can copy changes to another list. We can archive records to even a database. We can add approvals, and we can send cards to Microsoft Teams. So with Power Automate, you can even say, when a list item is changed, I want to send a nice adapted card to my Teams channel, and everyone could see. And combined with the new list image, you can create a card that looks very pretty, right? It's got the list image as well as the metadata from that list. So lots of examples. I want to show two examples very quickly. One is how we can provision lists very quickly right now using Microsoft Flow, and this is standard Microsoft Flow, so it doesn't need any premium connections. And secondly, I want to show a demo creating a PDF summary. So we're gonna maybe have to run quite quickly to show. Let me try and run this quickly. So the first example is this one. This is a Microsoft Flow that we can use the modern, let me go back going here. We can use the modern site scripting and site design to create SharePoint sites and lists very quickly. So this is a standard Microsoft Flow. It uses this action, which is called send a HTTP request to SharePoint. So out of the box, we don't have an actions for things like create a site or create a list from a template. So that's what these two are. So here we will create a site. Let's call it Valo Fest 1. I don't believe I have this URL. Let's just double check. So yeah, 404 not found. We don't have the site yet. And while that's saving, the first one, this requires a little bit of JSON. I'll make all this available. This is actually available on my blog, so you could just go to my blog and copy this. We're going to call this for Valo Fest. And that's really just a URL. And what we're doing is we're telling SharePoint, calling an API to say, please give me a communication site. Let's give a nice clarification. Fun business, fun impact, just fun. Create a site for Valo Fest. We're using the communication site template, and there is a one of the layouts which has grids across, and I'm the owner. So that's that one. That's just to create a SharePoint site. And then in modern site scripting, this is again a second JSON, but there are these verbs that let us create a SharePoint list. And it's as simple as saying, okay, I want to create a simple list. It's going to be called customer tracking. It's a custom list. I want to actually change the title afterwards. I want to add the description. I want to add a SP field, that's a text, so on. For complex fields, for this one, actually, you can add XML. This one actually has list formatting embedded in it. That's why it looks super crazy. I'm going to show you that in a second. But then add more fields and even add a, add a field. Okay, so this is, in modern SharePoint scripting, this is the kind of the JSON definition for a custom list template. So you know how Microsoft says, oh, we've got these 10 templates that we'll produce out of the box. Well, one of these templates will basically look like this. This is essentially the definition for a custom list in the modern SharePoint definition. Okay. I'm hopeful that we will have more and more JSON fields. That means we need to go to XML less. But right now, for complex fields such as the column formatter, it does need this encoding. The second step to it basically is we turn that whole big JSON into compressed into a string. So in Flow, we use the string function on the JSON that will encode the JSON into a string. And then we call this super funny special action that's called execute site script. So rather execute site script action. So rather than executing an entire script, we're just going to run this one action, and this action being to create my custom list. And we are creating on that URL we just picked earlier, which is the site URL from earlier. So let's just run that. Hopefully it's all working.
While you run it, what level of access do you need for the account being used here? Is it contributor who is able to create the list, or do you need to be admin?
So to be able to create a list, you need to be a site owner in that site. To be able to create a communication site, it depends on your organization. If you are able to say, go to here, go to SharePoint here, and just create site and communication site. If you have that permission, then you can run this flow. Okay. If you don't have that permission, because your tenant admins locked it down, then you can't create the site. You can still create the list in the sites that you're a member of. Yes. But you just can't create a list. Okay, so that ran actually really quickly. So creating a site took us 4 seconds. That's a full communication site. And then adding the list took us 1 second. So if I come to my site and just refresh, you'll see this is the entire communication site, our classification, our special title, waiting for the cogwheel. If I go to site contents, you'll see this is the custom list that's created. And that's got, if I go to the list settings, you will see here are my custom lists and choice lists even. So this choice list has these choice columns. What else? We created like a list view. And even more, let me show you this. If we hit quick view, and let me just pump some data in, John. Oh no, I'm I'm a founder of my company. I don't have a job title. I just have founder. It means you are everybody. You do everything. So this is a quick edit, and in fact, you can see I've customized my list. If I go here and edit, format the current view, you'll see that my entire list. Sorry, let me add a second person. Who's the second person? John Lefisk. He is the community. He's the crazy little guy. I don't know. He might be happy or offended. How I say, but you can see that my list already has custom alternative row style. That is something I've defined in my definition, right? As well as if I go into the column for the custom name tool, which is this column, I've actually override that with a special JSON definition. So before everyone gets so scared, John, you're telling everyone to write JSON. Let me double check my time. When Microsoft brought out these customizations, before there is this guy, there is only this guy. Okay, when like a year ago, when Microsoft says, "Oh, you can update these columns now and overwrite it," they say, "Yeah, click this button and go and read more, and here's the JSON that you need to write." That's the here we go to this one. Here's the full JSON that you'll need to be able to write. And that looks very scary, I agree. But over the last probably 6 months, they brought out this, right? So instead of requiring the power user or the business user to understand JSON and the intricacies of selecting the SharePoint column internal name, no, you don't have to know any of that now. You just hit this, add this rule, and say if the column is equal to this value, then I want this to have dark green, and I want it to have an underline. Where's the underline? I want a bold underline that's super bold. So all these stuff. Wait. Customer is equal to is not equal to. I don't know how to do a blank. Maybe that's that. Oh, I don't know. I think I might have broke it. Anyway, let me not break it right now. That would be silly. So right now some things need JSON, but more and more of the experience is adding in here. Like right now there is the conditional formatting. If you see Microsoft's video, there's two more. There is the you can change the shape to the jelly beans, and there's more settings that you can do. So Microsoft and the SharePoint team is investing a lot more in these experiences, but right now there are some that we can use already. So there's that, and then so that's the first flow, which is to create a list. I'm keeping an eye on my time. Yeah.
No worries. You have still 10 minutes, but just a comment that the point here for what you made is what you're showing is that this is publicly available today. So now you're not showing Microsoft lists, but you are showing something what can be done today with lists and Power Automate.
Yes,
cool.
But Microsoft lists will land in the next month or two.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Your experience of this column will just exponentially get better, right? So imagine right now I select a row, and I could say edit that and see this panel that comes in. Oh, does that work? So currently you can change the columns, but you can't say, oh, I want this to hide, right? You can hide this so this doesn't appear, but you can't say, oh, I want to. Can you? Oh no, you can already move it around. See, things are in there that I don't know. So you can already say, oh, okay, I want to move this around, or I don't want to show these columns on the edit form. So that will change this experience. See, but right now there are nothing that says, oh, I want 2 column or 3 column or full screen layout, or I want a header or a footer. So those are all things that will come, but they're not here yet. So there are some capabilities that are already available, but all these experiences are just getting better all the time. So that's that. Now I do want to do one more flow demo. So in Flow, there is a very special trigger. It's called SharePoint for selected item. And I need to make a few tweaks because this is bound to a different list. So I actually need to take, what's that? The Valo one. Let's take that. And this is not a list I've used before, so I'm gonna have to type that in here. And then select that list. Okay. Let's double check. Now I need to do the same to this one. Did it pick it up? No, it didn't pick it up. Select that. Okay, and so that's to select the item from that list, and one more here. And then let me save that, and then let's try and run this. To select this document library. Fingers crossed. May or may not work. If it doesn't work, I probably mess up one of these connections, but we'll see. So what we're doing in this flow is triggered when someone runs this flow on a certain item. And with the SharePoint customizations I've done on the Valo Fest site, you'll see that, exit the quick lists. I've actually customized this column, and instead of showing you a value from that column, I'm actually linking to a flow. Okay, so in the modern SharePoint customizations, you can actually create these buttons, and you can have more than one button, but each one will run a custom process on that item. So you see this one is saying run this flow. It's going to run an ASME. If I hit this button, it will run that flow, which will run this. So let's, how do we see it? This cannot be. So we're just gonna, let's see, let's come here and wait. And then we'll go over here and just run this flow. So I clicked on the first item. Oh, that crazy green has dropped in. So that started that flow on that item. And let me just refresh this. And it ran 10 seconds. It's successful. Oh, that's scary. I mean, of course. Okay, so for selected item means that it runs as the current user, the person that clicked it. If my colleague, in my tenant, I have Lord of the Rings characters. So if my colleague Gandalf were to click it, then the flow will actually run as Gandalf. Okay, so what that does basically is on the trigger, it tells me, okay, what was being clicked on, and it gives me the ID of that item. I then run a selected items, which gives me all the different values from my SharePoint list. Okay, and you can see the site is from Valo Fest, so that's good. I do a bit of juggling, so rather than all the internal names, I just want these nice little names. So I don't care about, internal ID or some JSON fields. I just want the nice fields. I then convert that JSON of one row to this nice HTML table. Okay, so this is the table literally of this guy, of this row. Then let's do some more. Let's pick a file name. So I generate a temporary file name. Don't need that. I then go over and find a nice picture. So I went to another SharePoint site and got myself a nice picture. I combined the two. This one is hard to read. So this is the picture in a encoder form, and that's something that Flow can do. Oh, this picture's too big. And then down the bottom, maybe you can see there's a bit of HTML table. That's the table that I've attached to this picture. And then I save the HTML file. Then I tell, this part is OneDrive for Business. I tell OneDrive for Business to convert the HTML file to a PDF. And then I finally save it back into my site. Where did I save it to? Oh dear. Oh, no, let me not click that. So if everything goes correctly, the flow would have saved it to the Valo Fest documents, and it will have created the id.pdf, and that's the picture with that item that was created. Okay, so this is all standard flow. There's no Azure functions, no funny premium connectors. But basically, we can use flow to add additional capabilities to automate things. And these could be things that run on the triggers or they happen automatically, or they could be actions that are user-click. Maybe when a user, maybe you have a list where once these fields are filled in correctly and I'm the person looking it through and go, yep, so accepted, then I click a button that says accept, and then the flow runs and does the PDF, sends an email to tell people it's done, copy this item or this PDF to another site, maybe to a public site, maybe to a communication site, and share that with everyone else. But that's all part of the business logic that you could build. But it's all built on extending what's out of the box with, the SharePoint list, soon to become the Microsoft list. The example here is because we can customize these lists, there's so much ability to do inline formatting and column formatting and add, and you can hide these buttons. So if the status is completed, hide the button so you don't have a button here. But there's so many ways that we could build quite a complex dashboard. If you think of this as a business process, you could have a dashboard that's built purely using SharePoint list to really show the business processes that are happening in your organization. So that's kind of the idea I want to leave you with. Am I running out of time?
Yeah, we are 2 minutes to go, but there's actually a really, really good question in the chat, which I'd like to raise here. Is kind of a scenario where can lists be used in a complex, can lists be used as an archive for Microsoft Forms using Power Automate? And I would expect that we would be, because SQL connector is expensive.
Yeah.
And the question relates to that can we actually archive stuff in using lists, and how would you respond to that? Especially when there's even parent-child links and so forth, so it's not a kind of a simple normalized data.
You can store up to 30 million items into a list. That's the hard limit. So when you can create Microsoft Flow, there is a Microsoft Forms trigger, and that's a very common pattern to say use the Microsoft Form to collect survey and quiz, and then use the Microsoft Flow Forms trigger to listen to that, and then write that into a SharePoint list. That's a very common scenario. And then on the SharePoint list side, you should customize the list so you can quickly see, okay, say this is a quiz, right? You can quickly see, who's getting the answers wrong, or who got the answers right, or group them by the class that they come in at, and so on. And also within your Microsoft Form, because you know within your Microsoft Flow, because you know who submitted that list, you could do a bit of a people lookup to know, okay, which department they come in at or which class they come in at. So that may be metadata that you want to add to your list as you're doing the write. So yeah, definitely very common pattern and very popular. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really good. Thank you, John, for your time.
Cool.
Excellent stuff, and really appreciate it that you were able to show something what is available today, and then also some what is up and coming. So really good.